4441.
Hi, I'm civil rights attorney Areva Martin, host of Areva Martin in Real Time, weekdays 4 to 6 p.m. right here on KBLA Talk 1580. Be sure to tune in weekdays at 4:35 p.m. starting Tuesday, March 7th for your daily download on the federal bribery trial of LA City Council member Mark Ridley Thomas. The case is sure to have many twists and turns, and our program will be the show of record in the case of United States versus Mark Ridley Thomas. We have our own seasoned justice correspondent who will be checking in with us to keep you up to speed on the daily details of this high-profile legal case. Be sure to tune in to Areva Martin in Real Time, weekdays at 4:35 p.m. starting Tuesday, March 7th for United States versus Mark Ridley Thomas, only on KBLA Talk 1580.
All's my life I has to fight. All's my life hard times like bad trips like Nazareth, I'm f***ed up, homie, you f***ed up. But if God got us, then we gon' be alright.
We gon' be alright. We gon' be alright. We gon' be alright. Do you hear me? Do you feel me? We gon' be alright. We gon' be alright. Huh? We gon' be alright.
I'm Tavis Smiley. This is KBLA Talk 1580. We are gonna be alright. Our phone number 1-800-920-1580. 1-800-920-1580. So glad to have you with us in this hour. I mentioned this a couple hours ago. Want to mention it once again. Thank you for all your support during Black History Month. We ran off a litany of things. We had a busy month, from wrapping trains to launching new shows to Les Brown's radio residency to a radio play yesterday called The Return, focusing on Malcolm and Martin. A lot happened in the month of February, to a wealth seminar at Chase Community Center. It was a very, very busy month, and we closed it out yesterday with a luncheon in West Hollywood at the London Hotel, celebrating these black legends in L.A. media: Pat Harvey, Jim Hill, Mark Brown, Leslie Sykes, Sandy Banks from the L.A. Times, and Pat Prescott. We honored these great black folk, these great Americans, these great icons in local media here yesterday. It was an amazing event. Mayor Bass came out to hang out with us and celebrate these personalities as well. So go to any of our socials. Trust me, the pictures and photos and video, there's stuff everywhere now. You can go on any of our platforms and check out some photos and see what an amazing day it was yesterday as we closed out Black History Month with that luncheon honoring these local black media legends. I think you can tell from the photos. You'll see all the love just oozing from the photos of our event yesterday. So it was a great month of February, and now we're into Women's History Month. And so we started our first hour today with Dr. Kay Whitehead talking about the role of black women in history. So we'll be moving through those issues in the month of March, focusing more expressly and specifically on the issues of women and black women in particular. So another busy month in front of us, but thank you for all your support of all of our efforts and events in the month of February. In this hour, a conversation with internationally recognized scholar and LMU professor, Dr. Sean Anderson, about the Black Athlete Revolt, the sport justice movement in the age of Black Lives Matter. It is his latest text. I laughed earlier, Dr. Anderson, because in our first hour, we had a professor from Loyola in Baltimore.
Okay.
And so I had to make a distinction. Loyola in Baltimore is represented in the first hour. In the third hour, we represent LMU
there we go.
in L.A.
Yeah.
Dr. Anderson, how are you, sir?
I'm great. And I'm glad to be here.
I'm glad to have you here. Thanks for coming in to see us. Let me start with this.
Okay.
Speaking of this return, we did a radio play yesterday called The Return. So it's basically Martin and Malcolm coming back to Earth,
right,
50 years after their assassination,
okay,
to sit with a guy named Tavis Smiley for a 1-hour conversation. They're only on Earth for 1 hour.
Okay.
They choose to come see me, and we have a conversation about a variety of contemporary issues. And one of the issues that came up in that play yesterday was Dr. King raised it, Malcolm commented on it, about their sort of, the trouble that they're having as they look down and see all these black athletes and entertainers making all this money when they're on top. And then a couple of years later, after they retire, they're bankrupt. They're broke. And King had something in character to say about that yesterday. And again, as I said, Malcolm commented on it. So let me just start with this broad question.
All right.
And that is whether or not you think black athletes writ large get a bum rap?
Ooh, that's a great question. I think so. Especially in today's society, we think about the dormancy of athlete activism, for example, back in the 80s and 90s, where they did not talk about social issues. But now athletes of today are talking about, okay, well, if you're not going to set up my future, I'm going to establish a business. I'm going to get into this media business. I'm going to establish schools. I'm going to establish things that my family can be secure with, years from now. We think about Colin Kaepernick, who, of course, was blackballed from the NFL, but he created a whole website about Know Your Rights. And he had all of the information about all the places he's donated money to and all those things. And so we spend too much time, I think, concentrating on the negative, and we don't see how they're really working to try to change things going forward. It hasn't been a perfect movement. It hasn't been the push that we want to see, but we are getting there, and we are seeing them making strides at this point. I
take your point. I want to play devil's advocate here just for a second.
Absolutely.
When I saw the book come across my desk, and we wanted to have you on as a guest, what got my attention was the title of the text.
Yeah.
The Black Athlete Revolt.
Yes.
Subtitle, The Sport Justice Movement in the Age of Black Lives Matter. But back to that title, The Black Athlete Revolt.
Yep.
Even if and I'm just going to debating you here.
Sure.
Even if I grant you that you're right, that we give these athletes a hard time, that we don't focus on the positive, we're always accentuating the negative. I'm not sure I would say that these Negroes are involved in a revolt. That word jumped out at me. So tell me, tell me why I'm wrong about this, and you're right. It's your book.
No. This book is actually an homage to Dr. Harry Edwards, his book back in the day, The Revolt of the Black Athlete. And of course, then we saw much more of a campaign for equal rights, human rights, and all those things back then. But as we know today, times are different. Not saying that racism hasn't gone away, but the way that we handle it, the way we talk about it is different. And so, I take this from the consideration of the hashtag Black Lives Matter movement, which, we're in the 10-year anniversary of that, right? And I take this also from the late, great poet, Rick James, that Twitter's a hell of a drug, right? So people, whether they are on the left, on the right, or indifferent, use that platform to spread their message. And I think athletes have taken that platform, along with other social media outlets, to now engage in conversations that are moving from protest to conversations on policy reform, and all those things, criminal justice reform, going in, talking with local grassroots leaders, making partnerships with organizations such as the Vera Institute in New York to say, okay, how can I use my money, my wealth, and my power to get us, beyond the marching, which is great and it's fine. But how can we go to our local legislators and say, we need these laws in these communities to help create change? And in that sense, I see it as a revolt.
Just getting started. You acquitted yourself nicely. You acquitted yourself nicely in that response. Just getting started in this hour with Sean M. Anderson, professor at LMU here in Los Angeles. The book is called The Black Athlete Revolt, The Sport Justice Movement in the Age of Black Lives Matter. And trust me, I got a whole lot more questions for him.
Let's do
and
it.
I know he's got some answers. You're listening to KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about. Good thing we've got 3 hours. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
Paramount Plus celebrates Black voices.
Let's do this.
From the team leaders in the game.
If this black woman can get there, then so can you.
To those fighting for justice in The Equalizer.
I would never let anything happen to you.
To our everyday heroes.
I am ready right now. Let's go.
And those who take us to new heights.
We are going where no one has gone before.
And beyond. Explore the Black Voices collection on Paramount Plus.
Let's fly.
The Venture X card from Capital One gives you premium travel benefits, perfect for seeing Taylor Swift The Eras Tour. Presented by Capital One. Oh, I do love her. Earn 5 times miles on flights and 10 times miles on hotels through Capital One Travel.
Enjoy your stay in Suite 13.
Whoa, 13? That's Taylor's lucky number. The Venture X card from Capital One. What's in your wallet?
Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com for details.
Chase loves soccer.
I'm Chase Greer, and I'm 12 years old.
And his dream is to turn pro. That's why Chase and his family make sure he's always having fun and squeezing out his best with Go-Go Squeeze.
Okay, buddy, let's break for a Go-Go Squeeze.
Go-Go Squeeze Fruit on the Go pouches are a nutritious snack made from 100% fruit with no sugar added.
That's my boy!
Because when you nurture your kids, you squeeze out the best in them. Squeeze out the best with Go-Go Squeeze. Not a low-calorie food. Products range from 11 to 13 grams of sugar and 60 to 70 calories per serving.
Did you know that California has the first in the nation task force to study reparations for African Americans? The work of the task force is to examine and recommend to the state legislature potential remedies of compensation, rehabilitation, and restitution for African Americans, with a special consideration for the descendants of persons enslaved in the United States. The task force has been hosting public hearings across the state to create awareness and educate the public. Be part of history and join them for public comment from 9 to 10 a.m. on March 3rd and 4th in Sacramento at the next Reparations Task Force meeting. For more information, visit the California Department of Justice website at oag.ca.gov. That's oag.ca.gov. Or you can send them an email from the website. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580, where everybody is somebody and nobody is a stranger. You belong here.
You do indeed belong here, and we're glad to have you here with us today. Glad to have him here as well. Him would be Dr. Sean Anderson, professor at LMU here in Southern California. His book is called The Black Athlete Revolt: The Sport Justice Movement in the Age of Black Lives Matter. To the extent, Dr. Anderson, you argue in the text that there has been a revitalization of black athlete activism. On what do you base that?
So, again, we have seen where the commercialization of sports has caused many athletes to say, I'm not going to lose this paper.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever this owner or whatever this commissioner says,
Mm-hmm.
I'll do it.
Mm-hmm.
I may not like it, but for the sake of me not losing my well-being, I'm just going to keep quiet. But the thing is, I think we've seen a shift in society. We could even take it back to Occupy Wall Street, for example, and people holding organizations accountable for their missteps. And so the Black Lives Matter movement, the Me Too movement, were just some of those that sort of, catalyzed that. And so then in essence, the revitalization comes from the fact that, athletes, again, began to demonstrate. We saw back when the St. Louis Rams were dealing with the situation in Ferguson, and they did the hands up, don't shoot demonstration, the Trayvon Martin hoodie, the Miami Heat put that all on. And so, more high profile athletes began to speak out about these issues, not necessarily worrying about their pockets,
right?
Which was then, I'll say a good thing, a revitalization in and of itself, not the Muhammad Ali, version, of course. The things that they had to go through, Bill Russell, Jim Brown, Althea Gibson, all of those from the civil rights movement. But the revitalization is that in which now several high-profile athletes are saying, okay, enough is enough. We need to do something. We need to figure it out. We're not going to change anything tomorrow, but this is the impact that we're trying to have.
I wonder whether or not you think that revitalization of activism by these black athletes today is more, how might I put this, is it more symbolic or more substantive? And I ask that because you're right. Back in the day of Ali and Jim Brown and Bill Russell and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Kurt Flood and all those who were at that table for that famous photo around Ali, they didn't have social media then.
Yeah.
And I fear, and I don't want to bag, I'm not bagging on athletes right now. I'm bagging on all of us.
Sure.
I fear that we become sort of, radio revolutionaries, that we become armchair revolutionaries. We can tweet stuff out all day long, post stuff all day long, but it ain't, sometimes we're doing it anonymously. Many of us are, most of us are. So, you can talk a bunch of stuff on the internet, but don't nobody know you.
Yeah.
You ain't taking no risk.
Yeah.
You doing it under an anonymous or an assumed name.
Sure.
And so, people have a lot to say about a lot of things. As a personality, I've been subjected to people coming at me for X, Y, or Z.
Right.
Well, you see me every day.
Yeah.
Negro, come on, Cletus. Come on, Cletus. Come on, Cletus. Yeah. I mean, you know where I am. You can see me. People running to me here and there.
Yeah.
But you can take shots at me online. I don't know who you are. I don't know where you live.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm not going to engage you in that regard. So my point is that no matter how you look at it, social media, to your early point, has changed the game.
Yeah.
So I'm asking, since you raised that as a subject of conversation, whether or not this new black activism, this revitalization of black athletic activism, is more symbolic or is it more substantive?
You know, I think it's split, because I have to agree with you. You know, even now in the day of Twitter, you know, you could buy your
followers.
Buy your followers. You know, pay that $100 a month. Exactly. You go, you're official.
Exactly.
And so, yeah, it's. I think for many of them who see something that happens in the media and then immediately they say, "Oh man, this is a tragedy to Black America." Hashtag, you know, woke and all that. It's good to speak about it, but then if there is no type of movement beyond that, then yeah, it's symbolic. We've seen some, again, actions that are in the media that have been taking place, but more of the stuff is outside of the media. You have to go and talk to grassroots organizations and local municipalities to talk about the things that they're doing. For example, Caron Butler, who was, of course, an NBA All-Star, current coach for the Miami Heat, has done a lot in trying to eradicate criminal justice issues in the state of Connecticut. But that's not talked about because, you know, again, maybe he doesn't want to be on social media, whatever the case may be. But yeah, there are some symbolic actions there that I think can be improved if we, you know, we're bold enough to talk about those things.
Let me just ask you: we're in NBA season right now, and headed toward the playoffs. The Lakers trying to see if they can make it in. with that injury to LeBron, Miles, I'm not sure it's going to happen. The Lakers are trying to make it into the playoffs here. But since we're in the NBA season, how does Kyrie Irving specifically fit into your matrix? I've been listening to you already. Of course, I've gone through your text. And I'm like, I got to ask him, how does Kyrie fit into this? Because on the one hand, as you said earlier, there are athletes who are bold enough to not care about their purse, but they speak their mind. Agree or disagree, like or loathe, they speak their mind.
Right.
And some folk agree, and some folk come after them. There are other folk, though, who, you know, want to stay away from that, or they do stuff sort of anonymously. So there are a number of different ways to read this, but Kyrie seems to just upend everything. And I don't know how you situate him in this moment of the black athlete revolt. So talk to me about how Kyrie fits into your frame.
You know, it's interesting because Kyrie, when he was with the Nets and during all the COVID, you know, he took that time off. He went to my home state of Arkansas to check out Central and all those things and museums back there to try to become educated on, you know, several things. And many may say, oh, well, you need to just slow down a little bit because you don't know what you're talking about on this, but you're good with that. And so, you know, for many in this day and age, you know, people may just come to the conclusion that they're indifferent about them because, you know, the whole Amazon, you know, sharing of the documentary, you know, that was a big thing against him. What I will say about Kyrie, though, is that he stands firm on if he said something wrong, he'll apologize. But then he'll say, okay, I've apologized enough. What else do you want me to do? I'm not going to continue to talk about this. I'm just going to continue to play the game, which he is still a top-tier talent. But, you know, that's the imperfection of what I see in the movement at this juncture, that there may be a lot of things that these athletes are caring for, but they don't have enough information on one side to talk about it, but on the other they can do that. And so I actually believe that it would be great for many of these athletes to have maybe a sociologist or a psychologist, you know, whether it's talking about mental health or something like that, to be at their side to give them information, to give them the data, to give them the understanding of what's going on in a particular cause that they care about. Then they can go out and say things. But right now, it's you know, it's a little controversial.
You know, I hear your point, and that's a great idea. The only pushback I would give for that is that we discuss this all the time around here. We are in the midst right now of living in a dumbed down demos.
That's true.
The entire demos is dumbed down. Politicians are dumbed down. You can't get much dumber than Donald Trump when he was in the White House. And he was the president, right?
Yeah.
So politicians are dumbed down. Corporations are dumbed down. every day. People are dumbed down. Our conversation is dumbed down.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure, I think it's fair to ask athletes to be any smarter, put that in air quotes.
Yeah.
If it's on live stream, you can see me. I don't know that it's fair to ask athletes to be any smarter, to be any more well-versed, to be any more educated than the rest of us. Now, they catch it when they get stuff wrong,
right?
When they're inaccurate. But I guess the point I'm trying to make here is that's a symptom of a much larger problem, and they're not the only ones who are guilty of this.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it makes sense totally. You know, you speak a point because athletes, I mean, they got to worry about the taxes that they got to pay in every state that they play in.
Sure.
So how are they going to, focus on these issues? I think then that's the case that, would help them instead of, saying a LeBron or somebody else tweeting out something, and then all of a sudden 70% of his fan base, oh man, what you talking about? Stick to sports and all that stuff like that.
Yeah. Shut up and dribble.
Shut up and dribble.
Yeah.
Which is a going thing, which trips me out because the people that say that online are also armchair politicians too, for the most part. And so, that makes sense, and they need that person on retainer, I believe, at this point, to help them see and navigate those things as they go. Because, at the end of the day, this is also a PR game when you're talking about social media and all of that. So,
I was talking to somebody the other day. I don't know how we got into it. We talked about the OJ trial all these years later.
Okay.
And the point was being made in this conversation, which was no surprise to anybody listening to this program. We know it. We lived through it. That there were a lot of good white folk who were hiding behind the veil of a not guilty verdict to essentially express the racism that they already felt anyway.
Yeah.
It's like, you can go after OJ. This is wrong. A guilty man got off. Okay.
Yeah.
But is that really what's got you upset? Or is this just a moment where you can use this, situation to really express and espouse what you feel about black folk anyway?
Yeah.
I raise that as a comparative example because I want to get your take on when people do say stuff like just shut up and dribble. When people do come after black athletes, to what extent these days do you think that that's tinged or maybe even animated by racism versus a legitimate critique of said black athlete?
Yeah, no, that's absolutely a tinge of racism, when it comes to that sort of language. This even takes me back to Bill Rhoden's book, The $40 Million Slave.
Love that book, man. Love Bill, love the book.
Absolutely.
Sure. Yeah.
And so, it's just another instance of coded language, another instance of saying that, you don't matter. I was, speaking of Twitter, I was looking at this post about that an athlete put up with the Atlanta Hawks, and he was talking about how, he's going to come to this certain city and, we're going to bust this team up, all this stuff like that. And then there was a fan that came on after him and said, well, no matter what you do, and he was talking about load management and all that stuff too. And this fan was like, well, no matter what you do, I'm paying your salary by getting these season tickets. I own you. There you go. There's a lot that you can pull from that. And so it definitely is a situation to where many of the people that say these things are basically saying, hey, good boy, stay in your place. Don't get involved in here with the big boys. Sit down. We'll pay you your little money while you make us our billions. That's what I see.
I felt the same way. Let me just bring it closer to home. I felt the same way. You give an example from Twitter. Let me give you a real life example.
Okay.
I don't fancy Dan Gilbert.
Yeah.
The owner of the Cavaliers, the Cleveland Cavaliers. I'm not a fan of Dan Gilbert primarily because I didn't like the way he languaged his public statements when LeBron left Cleveland to take his talents to South Beach.
Right.
Go back and look at what Dan Gilbert, the owner of the Cleveland Cavaliers, said then about LeBron James, and that got awfully close to just calling him a straight nigga. It just got that close. Nigga, I own you. That's it was. He didn't step across the line, but he had chalk on his shoes, right?
There you go,
That's how close Dan Gilbert got back then when LeBron again took his talents to South Beach, and he's an owner of the team. And then there are other owners since then. We can go to Don Sterling with the Clippers, and there's a long list of owners who behave in ways. I mean, the allegations against the owner of the Miami Dolphins and why the brother didn't get the head coaching job. I mean, so owners are involved in this as well. So we've talked about the public's reaction to these athletes. Talk to me about the ways in which ownership, obviously white ownership, has or is responding to what you call the black athlete revolt in real time?
That is the great question. That is the system that we see. I was listening to D. Murray Smith talk about the executive director of the NFLPA talk about why is it that when the players win the Super Bowl, the first person that touches the trophy is the owner, right? Owners are, in this sense, saying that, why do I need to change? You're talking about Dan Gilbert. Once LeBron is said and done, he's got a few years left, still one of the greatest players on the planet, probably, if not the best. But LeBron is gone. Another talent is going to come in. Dan Gilbert is going to stay there and pass that down to his children at some point. So while these athletes are calling out the owners, I think the owners, of course, especially in leagues like the NFL, are taking their sweet time, because how can you fail when one side of the political spectrum says, oh, I'm going to boycott this game because Kaepernick is not playing anymore, and the other side says, oh, I'm going to boycott because, I'm tired of these black folk kneeling. Okay, you're saying that, but then a month or two later, the ratings are back up. You're not losing anything. So why should they even push the envelope? But what's going to happen, or what needs to happen, if you're talking about making progression in the sport, equity and all, is the ownership of black folk coming into the game.
Hold that thought. Okay. I want to come right to that. I want to come right to that. You're prescient and prophetic. I was just about to go there, because the ultimate question for me is, when we're talking in this hour about the revitalization of athlete activism, when we're talking about this new book by Sean Anderson, professor at LMU, The Black Athlete Revolt. Speaking of revolt, the ultimate revolt would be black ownership.
Yes.
And I want to come to that, and ask specifically and directly and unapologetically how black ownership would change the game. How black ownership would then change the book you've written about the black athlete revolt. A lot more to get to. Our guest is LMU's Sean M. Anderson. You're listening to him right now on KBLA Talk 1580.
Say the quiet part out loud. KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Mike Island, and here's the latest from the Black Information Network. Eli Lilly has announced 70% price cuts on its most commonly prescribed insulin. The move comes as it and other insulin makers face ongoing criticism about high prices driving some diabetics to ration the life-saving drug. Lilly says starting in May, it'll cap out-of-pocket insulin costs at $35 a month for people with insurance. COVID-era food stamp benefits come to an end today. Over 40 million Americans participate in the SNAP program. Some families could see their payments cut by $95 a month. Creed 3 is projected to make between $38 to $40 million in its debut this weekend. The third installment in the franchise is the directorial debut of Michael B. Jordan, who also plays the lead role. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Island from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network, and BINnews.com.
Traffic jamming up in downtown LA with a wreck on the 110 northbound just before the 101, the 4 level. Traffic slammed coming away from the 10, and reduced speeds on the 110 north from Slauson Avenue up to the 10. Got a wreck working on the 60 westbound at the 10 connector. That's in the wrap-up stages. And a stick alert on the 101 northbound at Spring Street. That has the right lane blocked. Traffic's heavy approaching from the 60.
Dell Technologies provides growing businesses with tools to do incredible things, because we believe there's an innovator in all of us. For advice on smart PCs powered by Intel V Pro that's built for business, call a Dell Technologies advisor at 877-ASK-DELL.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
A very bad display of basketball last night from both of LA's NBA teams. The Lakers and Clippers committed a combined 51 turnovers. The Lakers committed a season-high 26 in a 12-point loss at Memphis. Not a good start for the Lakers in what could be a long stretch without LeBron James. LeBron will miss at least the next 5 games before his right foot is reevaluated in 2 weeks. LeBron wore a boot cast during last night's game. The Clippers lose by 7 at home to Minnesota. 25 turnovers for the Clippers. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. This sports report was brought to you by Original Taco Pete.
Aaron at Original Taco Pete's. Come in today for our tasty seasoned black taco. We're at 3272 West Slauson off Crenshaw, or call 323-348-4441.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
The U.S. premiere of the official Bob Marley One Love Experience has arrived in Los Angeles. Open now through April 23rd at Ovation Hollywood on the corner of Hollywood and Highland. Tickets start at $20 plus fees and are available at BobMarleyEXP.com. That's BobMarleyEXP.com. Get your tickets today.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a whole lot to talk about.
Hi, Maisha Cairo here, KBLA, live at Chase Bank on Crenshaw and Vernon for the In This Together tour with female business owners, a day of empowerment, community panels, and best of all, tips on building business from marketing to capital. Today, I was able to speak with Ola Wadibia, VP of Women on the Move. Hi, Ola. Tell me a bit about this initiative by JP Morgan Chase, founded in 2013.
Women on the Move is a center of excellence at JP Morgan Chase in our global DEI organization, where we really focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion. What's really awesome about Chase's approach is that all of our centers of excellence, and there's 7 of them, focus on different demographic groups, is that we're really focusing on what's happening internally in the firm and also what's happening out in community. So really, Women on the Move is really focused on thinking about how do we help advance women professionally and personally.
I love it. So tell me about this beautifully updated banking branch here on Crenshaw.
That was really important. A part of our racial equity commitment was to build in place for Chase. So being able to revamp this beautiful space, to be able to welcome community members. You know, today anyone, nonprofit, organization, school can actually do events in our community center that we're sitting in here for free. Yes, people come inside, like grab a coffee, use the Wi-Fi. It's free.
Yes, Maisha Cairo in the community for KBLA with JP Morgan Chase.
Broadcasting live from Leimert Park, USA. Welcome back to your home for unapologetically progressive radio. KBLA Talk 1580.
We're delighted to have LMU professor Sean M. Anderson in studio right now. His book is called The Black Athlete Revolt: The Sport Justice Movement in the Age of Black Lives Matter. He and I were talking about so many things during the break, and that's why you shouldn't do that, because you got to reprise that stuff on the air. Yeah. I usually tell folks during the break, don't tell me, because when you say it on the air again, it doesn't have the same that it had the first time you said it. But we were talking, though, about ownership. Let's go to there first, and how this notion of a revitalized, athlete activism, and I grant you we're seeing a lot of that now. There's a great photo on the cover of the book with an athlete who has Black Lives Matter written on his shoes. And so I assume those are his shoes. And if not, the sister got big feet. So I'm assuming they're his shoes. Yeah. It's a great photo. Okay. But the book is called, again, The Black Athlete Revolt. And we were just teeing up this conversation about the penultimate conversation, which is how black ownership would change or impact whatever revitalization we think we are experiencing when it comes to black athlete activism.
Yeah. Ownership, front office, right? General managers, VP of operations, those things are needed. Because, you think about the Dallas Cowboys. I have a lot of homies in Arkansas. Of course, Arkansas doesn't have a pro team. That's the next team to go for. And I'm probably the more anti of that movement as far as like fandom is concerned. But this team is the highest valued team in the NFL.
That's called it's America's team.
It's America's team. And Jerry Jones is as much popular as the team itself. But again,
from Arkansas,
your
home state,
exactly.
Got in some trouble a while ago.
Yeah, a few instances.
Yeah.
But again, that's the thing, right? That stuff is sent out, but it's swept away at some point. But at some point, he's 80 years old. He's been the general manager, the owner, all this stuff for the last 20, 30 years. He's going to pass that down to one of his children. And so we don't have that type of platform in any sport. I honestly believe Michael Jordan was able to get his ownership role because he's Michael Jordan, right? But this is a funny thing, Tavis. I was in class. I was teaching a class about a year ago, and it was a student that wanted to talk to me. She was devastated. She couldn't, do her work. It was just a lot going on, family stuff. And so she came to me, and of course I can't mention her name, but she was like, I'm devastated because my family is losing our team. And I was like, okay, so this is an interesting conversation. So she went on to say that, her family was having to sell the Denver Broncos. And I was like, whoa, what kind of students am I teaching right now, first of all? And, there were a lot of people, including some black folk, Byron Allen and others who were trying to vie for that team. But when Walmart steps in, I mean, who is going to back away? We have Jeff Bezos, who's in conversations with the Commanders. And so where can we get that sort of clout and connection to get into that box? Because that's going to be the next way that we see revolutionary change through ownership. But those barricades are strong, and you have to bring in a lot of power. Even Magic Johnson is doing a lot, but, it still remains to be seen where these things can go.
2 or 3 things, given what you've just said. Number one, this came up yesterday in that radio play called The Return, where Martin and Malcolm come back to Earth. I come back to it because, again, a day after, I'm realizing now all the stuff that we did cover in that conversation yesterday and how it resonates with other conversations that I'm having even today. One of the things that came up was Dr. King makes a comment about LeBron James in the conversation yesterday, and then he takes a shot at MJ, and I said, oh, man, shots fired, pimp down. MJ is down. And he made the point just sort of snidely, Dr. King did in the radio play yesterday, that MJ, without calling his name, had said that he didn't get involved in politics because Republicans buy tennis shoes too. Remember that comment? That thing was, that was years ago. But Michael said, I don't do politics. He was specifically being asked to get involved in the race for Harvey Gantt's Senate seat. Harvey Gantt, a brother who'd been mayor, for those who weren't around then, Miles and JD weren't around then. There was a brother named Harvey Gantt who was running for mayor of Charlotte, North Carolina, had been mayor of Charlotte, North Carolina, and was running for United States Senate seat against one of the most racist United States senator in the Senate, a guy named Jesse Helms. Helms was the most racist senator in the United States Senate. Harvey Gantt had been mayor of Charlotte, North Carolina, and was running in a race against Jesse Helms and was doing very well in the polls. And everybody was getting behind Harvey Gantt in North Carolina. Where's Michael Jordan from? North Carolina. Where did he play basketball at? North Carolina. So everybody started asking Michael if Michael, and this is Michael at the top of his game, he's killing it in the NBA, if Michael would come out and endorse Harvey Gantt, history could be made, and this racist Republican senator would finally get kicked out of the U.S. Senate. And Michael's response to being asked to get involved was, I can't get involved in politics because Republicans buy my tennis shoes too. Dr. King made reference to that in our conversation yesterday. Never mind Michael. Michael's my boy. I like Michael. Never mind what he said then. He was still able to become an owner, to your point, because, in fact, he's Michael Jordan. But those hurdles that you mentioned are real. Again, I thought about that because it was just discussed yesterday in our conversation. What I don't like, though, is when black owners or others think they can drag black athletes. So I said earlier, I didn't like Dan Gilbert for dragging with his words LeBron when he took his talents to South Beach. I don't like the way they dragged Kyrie Irving in Brooklyn. Here's my point. White athletes get in trouble, and the frame for how they apologize, express remorse, ask for forgiveness is a different frame than Negroes who get caught up in it. The frame for the white guys ain't the same as the frame for Kyrie Irving. It ain't the same as the frame for LeBron James. It ain't the same as the frame for Michael Vick.
Yeah.
They were still protesting. Peter was still protesting.
Yeah, at the games. I mean, his last season, they were still out there with the picket signs. I was like, man, what?
And some of them were protesting when he got a job at one of these sports networks.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, during the Pro Bowl.
Yeah.
I mean, how long does this go on where you protest Michael Vick 10, 15, 20, 30 years? I mean, does it happen till he dies?
Right.
I mean, it's just a different frame for black athletes. So as we're talking about the black athlete revolt, that revolt is still being met with a revolt of its own, if that makes sense.
Yeah. You know, I didn't write about this in the book, but I've
Right.
been thinking about it, and I want to do it in other work. I call it the Tom Brady effect, right?
Oh, yeah.
So, Tom Brady, you know, storied career, just retired, of course. Well,
The GOAT. The GOAT.
The GOAT.
Yeah.
Can't knock his career. Here's the thing. I think a lot of the commentators have created this sort of problem. When Terrell Owens was, you know, in his prime in the game, and I think he still left a little bit too early despite the long career he had, still Hall of Famer. When he would yell on the sidelines and try to pump his teammates up or do whatever he does, you know, he was called a team obliterator, a distraction, a nuisance. You know, I would never put him on my team. But you literally see Tom Brady yelling at a ref, yelling at his teammates on the sidelines,
and throwing those expensive laptops,
and
breaking
them.
Yeah.
And the commentary is, oh, he's a leader. You should not dare talk back to him or, you know, put him down because if you have him, he's a winner. Well, I mean, Terrell Owens was in the Hall of Fame for something, right? I mean, his talent was there. And so, same thing with Aaron Rodgers and all the others who get in trouble. It's this effect. It's this thing of saying, okay, well, if this black person is loud, then you're a problem. You're a destruction. You fit the stereotype of not being that leader. I think that's why we still had that conversation of the intelligence of black athletes, especially at the quarterback position. You know, that effect has been put out there over time.
Let me come to that in 2 seconds here.
Okay.
When we come forward, we'll come to this issue of the intelligence or lack thereof.
Yeah.
I was talking to some friends the other day, and we were discussing whether or not the fact that these two brothers just showed out this year in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
These two black quarterbacks, first time ever, two black quarterbacks playing for the big trophy, the Lombardi Trophy, right?
Yeah.
First time two black quarterbacks have done that. We were in conversation discussing whether or not that would change the conversation. If that would be a game changer about the lack of intelligence of black athletes when those two guys performed the way they did. Let's get your take on that when we come forward. You're listening to Sean Anderson of LMU talk about his new book, The Black Athlete Revolt, only on KBLA Talk 1580.
Be sure to like and follow Tavis Smiley at The Real Tavis Smiley and get Twitter updates at Tavis Smiley. The conversation continues when we come forward.
KBLA closed out Black History Month by honoring a number of black legends in LA media. Maisha Cairo here with your K-Black Minute News, brought to you by Lendistry. Jim Hill of CBS, CBS's Pat Harvey, KABC's Mark Brown and Leslie Sykes, NBC's Beverly White, LA Times' Sandy Sykes, and radio vet Pat Prescott, all black legends in Los Angeles media were honored at a beautiful gathering. A veritable who's who of Los Angeles influencers and thought leaders were in the audience, including LA Mayor Karen Bass. KBLA congratulates all the honorees and sends a special thank you to Mayor Bass for joining us. I'm Maisha Cairo. We've got a lot to talk about.
Thanks to our new sponsor, Lendistry. Lendistry is a national black-led small business lender that is headquartered in Los Angeles. Lendistry helps small business owners access the affordable capital needed to grow. Visit Lendistry, LENDISTRY.com/KBLA today.
Santa Anita Park, the premier race place for thoroughbred racing, and Sapphire Marketing have combined to present the Big Cat Party in the elegant Chandelier Room on Saturday, March 4th from 12 p.m. to 5 p.m. and after party until 7 p.m. This is a VIP event for the grown and classy. Your VIP access gets you complimentary beer and champagne upon arrival, one per guest, with an amazing buffet, complimentary cocktail tasting, live entertainment, and exciting live thoroughbred racing. Tickets can be purchased online at santaanita.com/sapphire. or call 626-574-6402. The after party starts after the last race, which includes more food, more drinks, more music, and a meet and greet with the jockeys. That's the Big Cat Party, Saturday, March 4th, in the Chandelier Room at Santa Anita Park, the premier race spot. Tickets can be purchased online at santaanita.com/sapphire or call 626-574-6402.
California is a great place to live and work, but those aren't easy things to do for students also going to college. That's why the state created the Californians for All College Corps, a way for students to build skills and help others while earning up to $10,000 for school. Commit to serve your community and we'll help you pay for college. Spots will fill up fast, so learn more and apply today at www.cacollegecorps.com. That's www.cacollegecorps.com. California is a great place to live and work, but those aren't easy things to do for students also going to college. That's why the state created the Californians for All College Corps, a way for students to build skills and help others while earning up to $10,000 for school. Commit to serve your community and we'll help you pay for college. Spots will fill up fast, so learn more and apply today at www.cacollegecorps.com. That's www.cacollegecorps.com.
Conversations that matter. You're listening to Tavis Smiley on KBLA Talk 1580.
So Sean Anderson is our guest in this hour. His book is called The Black Athlete Revolt. We were talking before the break about the issue of talking about Michael Jordan, and how Michael ended up owning that team anyway. But I wanted to come back to this issue of intelligence. That's what we last teed up. And I was saying that I was in conversation the other day about whether or not these two black brilliant quarterbacks in the big game this year would change the conversation, long-standing, about the lack of intelligence when it comes to black athletes. Now, we raise this why? Because if you know anything about sports, the quarterback position is the one that they say you have to be the smartest, to succeed at. So that's just the standard, their nomenclature. You got to be really smart to be a great quarterback in the NFL. Well, you got two brilliant guys who just put on an amazing performance. Mm-hmm. Does that change the conversation about the intelligence or lack thereof of black athletes, or is that conversation still going on?
I mean, it's still going on. Yeah. I mean, it's changed it ever so slightly. Just a couple of years ago, right, the NFL was talking about how, we're going to remove this test that we used to do that says that, intellectually, black people are behind anyway. So in bringing them into this situation is going to be an issue because, think about it. In times past, the intelligence, like you say, went to the white athlete to play quarterback, whereas the black players are just described as, if they play quarterback, that's an excellent athlete that can move to running back, tight end, wide receiver, whatever the case may be. And we still see that in many cases. So I think it's going to take just like further announcements, further research to eradicate these false narratives. In addition to seeing more black athletes play the position to move that needle.
Yep. When we come forward there in our remaining moments with Sean M. Anderson of LMU, talking about his new book, The Black Athlete Revolt, the sport justice movement in the age of Black Lives Matter, I want to offer as our extra question perhaps, what most concerns him about this real-time Black Athlete Revolt, this revitalization of it, and what most heartens him about it, what most concerns you, scares you, and what most heartens you about this revitalization of this revolt as you see it. We'll put that to Sean Anderson when we come forward in our remaining moments with him on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580 is an intervention. When we come forward, includes you. KBLA Talk 1580, turning pain into power.
Hi,
it's me, Gia Peppers. Tune in to More Than That live on radio this weekend or wherever you listen to podcasts. This week, I'm talking to new age content creator and virtual reality guru Rhonda X and radio host and business mogul Angela Yee, who will share how they use traditional and future-forward strategies to build sustainable and impactful businesses. This episode of More Than That is brought to you by MasterCard on a mission to help Black women entrepreneurs blaze a trail for tomorrow's superstars.
I was like on Twitter super early when no one was on there. And when I was at Sirius, I used to always tell people, oh, get on this. I remember I even have video of T.I. being like, what's a tweeter? What's that?
Wow.
Yeah. And Jalen Rose, to this day, he'll be like, Angela's the reason I got on Twitter. She was the first person I heard talking about it.
Wow.
Yeah, I helped, like, Nicki Minaj got on Twitter back then because when she came up, I made her, like, start up a Twitter page. And so that was one of the first ways that I really started connecting with people, and that's what really helped me get a lot of traction.
So virtual reality is like another social media phase. So it's kind of like in the beginning how everything was on a desktop. You had the MySpace, then everything went to the apps. Right now, everything is going into virtual reality. Being part of the early adoption phase is important so we can all create our own narrative. Whatever you want to do, whatever business you're in, find what works in VR. It doesn't matter if it's retail, it doesn't matter if it's music. There's a lane that can be created. There's no wrongs right now because the lane is so new. And that's why I tell people all the time about it, because I'm like, look, even if you don't know anything about it like that, do your research, get obsessed, and find what works for you. Because when a lane is not dominated, you can create it and you'll be one of the first people to kind of set the tone of what that looks like.
I love that.
Our Weekly Los Angeles is the largest audited Black newspaper in the state of California with a distribution of over 50,000 copies weekly. Pick up a copy every Thursday to get the latest news on African American communities of LA. You can also keep up with what's going on in Los Angeles and surrounding cities by going to www.ourweekly.com. The Our Weekly website is updated daily with the current news about us and for us. For your advertising needs, Our Weekly offers economical advertising packages to fit your budget. Feel free to call Our Weekly Los Angeles at 323-905-1300 or visit the website at www.ourweekly.com. Our Weekly Los Angeles, reporting news that matters to you.
Interrogating your assumptions and expanding your inventory of ideas. Let's get back to Tavis Smiley on KBLA Talk 1580.
Let's get back to Dr. Sean Anderson, professor at LMU. The book is called The Black Athlete Revolt, the Sport Justice Movement in the Age of Black Lives Matter. So in researching this text, let me just start with this right quick. When you write a book like this, who do you talk to? Who do you interview?
Oh, so, I interview student athletes. I interview professional athletes, lawyers, grassroots leaders.
Okay.
Again, like I say, former players. And just ask them the questions. What are you seeing that is a success? What can be improved? It's this sport justice movement why I call it a sport justice movement is because we can no longer unhinge sport and politics, right? It's been around a lot longer, for example, than the civil rights movement. You're talking about post-Civil War when sport and politics came together. So
Jack Johnson,
Jack
you
Johnson.
Go way back.
There you go.
Yeah.
And so, you talk to those people, you talk to the legal scholars to see, okay, well, what can be done to create some type of policy change? What can we do to get to the point to where it doesn't sit in Congress forever, an act is passed and it's really pushing forward? And so you talk to those type of people. You take what they say, you do your research on what's been done in the past, and then project the future.
There you go.
Yeah.
To your point about the future, let me close with this then. Given the research for this book, The Black Athlete Revolt, what are you most heartened by with regard to this revitalization of athletic activism on the part of Black people, and what most troubles you?
I'm heartened by the fact that despite all of the vitriol, despite all of the things that could come against them, they're still talking about the issues. They're still saying that we need to change. Again, it's not a perfect movement at this point, but we are getting to the point to where we can engage in that ownership conversation and all those things. What disappoints me, a few things, of course. Well, I think about one. We got a lot of sport brand activism going on at this point. You know, you got Nike making commercials and all these other places. But is it lip service or is it actually justice? You know, is it actually tangible? Is it going to be something that's going to change, or are you joining a trend? That's a concern for me. The other is the system of, you know, ownership and front office. When most of the popular sports in the United States are dominated by black athletes, I still don't like this thing to where they still feel this pressure of shut up and dribble, be quiet. You know, okay, we're going to put out the Black Lives Matter at the end zone or on the half court or on the sideline to appease you, but is that truly going to, you know, move us forward? You know, I don't see that. It varies according to the sport, but I don't see it pushing the needle fast enough the way we need it, and that is a concern.
Yeah. But are you hopeful?
I'm hopeful.
Yeah.
I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful for sure.
Yeah. It's one thing to identify the problem, and it's another thing to be hopeful versus being pessimistic about it.
Yeah.
So at least after your research and all the work you put into the book, you're hopeful that that this movement will be taken more seriously, and that will one day lead to some real meaningful change and reform for not just them, but for our people
absolutely
writ large.
There you go.
The book is called The Black Athlete Revolt, The Sport Justice Movement in the Age of Black Lives Matter. It's written by Sean M. Anderson, who is a professor at LMU. Let me just add, a tenured professor at LMU. I was teasing him during the break. He's telling me he had tenure. I said, Negro, I ain't mad at you.
You got to get it.
You got to get it, man, because getting tenure ain't easy to do. Speaking about a movement, speaking about a revolt, it ain't easy for black professors to get on that tenure track and to receive tenure. But I tell you this, I'm jealous of all y'all because it don't work that way in radio. You don't stay in the game so long you get tenure. It doesn't work that way in television where you get tenure. No, you can get fired any day.
There you go.
So I ain't mad at all of my friends in academia. It's the only institution I know, only field I know in the country where you get so locked in that they can't fire you. You got tenure. I wish I had tenure around here at KBLA, but I digress. Professor Anderson, good to have you in. Congrats on the book.
Appreciate it. Thanks so much.
That's our show for today. Time now for the KBLA Midday Money Chain. Up next, the Millionaires Roundtable with Lynn Richardson, to be followed by Naja Roberts in her program, Ahead of the Crypto Curve. Old money, new money, either way, it don't matter. We got you covered here on KBLA Talk 1580. Thanks for tuning in. Lord willing, see you here again tomorrow morning. But until then, and as always, keep the faith.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Mike Island, and here's the latest from the Black Information Network. Millions of Americans are about to see their food stamp benefits cut. Over 40 million participate in the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program known as SNAP, which helps struggling families buy groceries. The benefits were increased during the COVID pandemic, but they come to an end today. Over a dozen states are bracing for severe weather as March begins. Forecasters are warning of damaging thunderstorms from Texas to Ohio as cold air from the north collides with warm air from the south over the central U.S. Rising mortgage rates are the reason for a drop in mortgage applications.